Jeffrey's gotten really successful. He's got money, he's got the physique, and he's got the girls. He must be so happy. Wait, he still looks kind of depressed. But Jeffrey, you have it all. What could be missing? Adonis. Family means everything to Adonis. Even though he has had so many problems with his parents and his siblings, Adonis knew that the priority of life is his relationships. And so on his path of self-improvement, Adonis did not simply level up his work and his fitness and his love life, but also his relationship to his family as well. The big idea that I want to give to you in this video is for you to ask deep questions to your parents so that you can understand them more. If you've played the game Grand Theft Auto, remember you'd click on the map and you'd see like this map of the city that you're in, and all of it's kind of blacked out apart from the bit that you're on right now. As you start to explore the city, you go down this road and this one and this one, the map starts to light up and you start to see where you've been before. Someone's consciousness, values, and memories is kind of like that map. So for example, you have the map of your mother and your father, and most of it is still black. Like, you actually probably don't know that much about your parents. And what a shame that is. What if you sat them down and you said to them, like, I've got a question for you, which I'm sure they'd be so curious about. And you ask them something that you've never really thought about before, but just comes to mind as something that'd be so interesting. Imagine you just take your father aside, just you and him. And like an adult, like a man you speak to, and you ask him, like, what was my mother like when you met her? Imagine how much of a wholesome, fulfilling conversation that would be. I think that would be a memory that you would remember for a while. I think at the end of this year, when you're thinking about like, oh, how was 2025? You might actually remember this conversation compared to the hundreds of gym workouts that we did, the hundreds and thousands of hours that we'll spend working on businesses and on school and career. It's conversations like this that you'll remember at the end of the year. Imagine you take your mother aside and you ask her, like, what was your dad like? Imagine if you haven't really met him, maybe he passed when you were young. How did that feel? I get a flashback of when we used to live in Liverpool, so I must have been like, I don't know, like 10 years old. And my mom was crying because her brother had passed away, like my uncle had passed away. And we had left Pakistan, like that's where our family was. We had left there like, 5-8 years ago or something. So I kind of like, I was trying to remember who he was, but I didn't know so much. And of course, as a child, you're kind of biased with your own level of thinking. And since I didn't really know my uncle, I kind of didn't really see it as a big deal. He was my mom's brother. Like, her brother passed away. Like, if you've got a brother right now, imagine how like devastating that would be, how life-changing that would be if your brother passed away. And after that day when I saw her crying, I still remember because we were stood next to the stairs, kind of like the landing of the second floor of our house. I don't think I ever spoke to her about that ever again. Imagine if I sat her down and I said, tell me about your brother. What was he like? What was it like growing up with him? Like, all these conversations that you have to mine for. And I think this is the interesting thing, you've heard the advice of like, oh, spend more time with your parents and, like get to know them, whatever. And if you're honest, or if I'm honest, look, I'll say it for us. You kind of don't want to take that advice. The thing of like, oh, spend more time with your parents. And the reason why is because, quite frankly, it doesn't feel kind of that productive. And someone who's more wholesome might look at us and be like, wait, what? Yeah, there is. But look, this is how the conversations normally go with your parents, if you're anything like me. It's mostly like a sort of check-in conversation where your parents will say something to you like, how was school? How was work? How was the gym? Okay, good. How's your diet? How's this? How's that? Okay, good. And then you'll ask them, okay, how was work? How was the day? Boom. It's just check-ins. Especially if you don't live at home anymore. You might still live at home, but when you move out and you call your parents or they call you, it's always that. It's like, how's your friend? How are you? How's the girl you're seeing? How's the food been? And then you'll ask them, okay, how are you? And quite frankly, like, I know this sounds so mean to say, but those conversations are not nourishing for the soul. Those conversations are a little bit bland and kind of boring. And it is not those conversations that develop you into having a greater connection with your parents, because if it did, we'd all be super close with our parents. But many young people feel like we've got such a big split between them. You can live with your parents for 20 years, for another 5 years when you're growing up, building a business or something. You can be next to them for hours every day. It is not the quantity of time. It is not the number of conversations you have with them. It is how deep you have went into the depths of their memories and their values. It is not just spending time with them. I think that's such a cope. I think spending time with people is fucking bullshit. I think it's not about spending time. The advice is like, oh, call your parents. If you could just blindly call your parents, the conversation will be fucking boring. It will. What you need to do is have an intention. You need to literally sit before you call your parents, before you just go and spend some like random time with them. You need to really sit and ask yourself, like, what question should I ask my dad today? Maybe get a journal out and just think, like, what do I want to know about him? What part of his map of his sort of life have I not explored yet? Think of something so interesting, so curious, and ask him, like, who did you have a crush on before you met my mother? What happened with that? Who was your first girlfriend? Maybe a bit vulgar, but you ask him, like, who did you lose your virginity to? Imagine not knowing this. Like, imagine if your parents pass and all those memories and values and stories disappear from the world with them because their own children didn't even care to ask. And what's interesting is, when I've told you this, you're probably nodding your head thinking like, wait, this is a great idea. Like, this is some quality content right here. But the thing is, you probably just have not thought about doing this. You probably, if you're in your 20s, you have had the thought of kind of getting closer to your family. But all the advice online has been so bad where it's like, spend more time with them. And then you kind of consider it, but you're like, if I'm just honest, I know it sounds awful, but I'd just rather work and do my own like self-improvement stuff. And the reason why, it's not because we don't want to spend time with our parents, but because the time we spend with them is unintentional and it's just bland. And there's so many deep conversations we're not having with them. Like, think about the concept of trauma and pain in our lives. Most of that, when you really think about it, would come from your family. Chances are you're in your 20s when you watch this, right? And in your brain, throughout the day, you think about work, you think about money, you think about fitness, and you think about girls. And that's probably about it, right? We don't really think about family so much when you're in your 20s. If you think about family, it's under the lens of like, oh, I'll make money for my family. But we don't really think about our family so much, right? But get this, we have so many wounds inside of us because of family. When you think about the pains that you've been through in life, most of it will literally be in some way to do with your family. Family is the area of life that guys in their 20s, we focus on the least. We say that, we're working really hard so we can provide for them, but you're not really focused on them when you do that. You're just focused on work. Imagine how many like stored emotions and trauma you have inside of you, how many unspoken conversations you have inside of you, how many questions that are unanswered, how many like tears that need to be shed, but you've kind of reserved them, all because of family. And it's conversations like these, it's this bit of advice that I'm giving you, like, go and ask some deep questions to your family that will unleash all of these emotions. You'll ask a random question to your dad and you'll start crying because there's just so much built up emotion that you just kind of like, just pushed away. Like, you never displayed it to him. You never expressed it to him when you were a child and your parents were a little bit, like they were less educated and meaner and stuff and they had less respect for you. When you'd cry, they'd tell you to stop crying, and so you basically learn to reserve your tears and to hold them in, and that causes literal, genuine sickness. Imagine how much pain and how different you are because of the experiences we've had with family, which I'm promising you, I give you my word right now, that stuff, like that sort of pain does not go away through indirect means. Like, for example, if our family hurt us, let's say if your dad hurt you, it seems okay, like, it seems like it's kind of productive to get away from your dad and then focus on gym and work. But I'm telling you right now, that pain inside of you will still be there, and it'll be insidiously, almost like poison, lowering your performance in this world, lowering your mental health. It'll disturb your sleep by 5%. There's so much like shit inside of us that a lot of us young guys, we're trying to heal indirectly by, for example, the usual goals that a lot of us are into. We want to be millionaires, we want to get jacked. Well, guess what? You're literally watching the video of the guy who became a millionaire in his 20s and got jacked, and I'm telling you right now, those things are fucking awesome, by the way, but it does not heal these wounds. These wounds have to be healed directly. I'm telling you right now, you can't indirectly heal the pain that your family caused and whatever. You have to look at your dad in the eyes and ask him the questions like, when you hurt me when I was young, how did you feel about it? There's so many questions like that you could start to ask your parents and your siblings. You don't even know who they are. No wonder when you spend time with them, it feels in some ways like, a little bit awkward and cringe, because they're weird strangers who also are some of the closest people to you. It is our duty to extract and to mine for the sort of curiosity-inducing conversations. Because when our parents speak to us, they're not watching self-improvement videos. When our parents speak to us, they're just gonna say what's on their mind, which is, how are you? Are you safe? Are you eating good? How's this? How's your friend? How's your girlfriend? Okay, how's this? Boom, 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 boom. That's it. You'll ask the same questions and it'll be a boring conversation. Then you'll tell them, okay, I need to get back to work, and you're not really listening to them. You need to be the one who steps up and says, oh, by the way, I was curious about something. I wanted to ask you a question. And I guarantee that will be like the most interesting part of their day when you say to them and you ask them a question like, who was your first ever crush? What was your high school experience like? What friend do you miss the most? I guarantee at the end of the day, that's what they're going to be thinking about was the highlight of their day, of their week. And honestly, probably for you too. You know, the things that we're focused on, like fitness and self-improvement and money, like, you know, as young guys and even girls, that stuff is awesome, honestly, because that stuff is way better than being out in the street and causing problems for people and taking drugs and being on video games and porn. So we're definitely on a good path here. But I will say, I don't want you to become like a one-dimensional young man who's just pursuing all these sort of external achievements, okay, money and fitness and girls and stuff, because that stuff's still nice, but there's like gaping holes inside of you. And I firmly believe, I think every step you take into sort of healing the relationship with your parents and having these adult conversations with them, I really believe it kind of takes you to the next level of your sort of development as a man. And it's the weirdest thing ever. I promise you this is so true, even though there's no like science for this. When you have these kinds of conversations with your parents, the ones that release a lot of emotions and you randomly start crying like a child, I promise you'll start to make more money in your business. You'll randomly, the next day, your physique will look like 10% better. I know it sounds like there's no science for that. I promise though. We have like these stuck emotions, like this sort of pain inside of us that when you don't express it to the person who's caused it, it just stays inside. And it's like you operate at less efficiency. You're probably operating at like what, 10, 15% efficiency as your absolute maximum because of how much shit you have inside of you. You know, like imagine the kid who's like bullied in high school. Imagine like his body language, the way he talks and walks, he's so reserved and stuff. He's got so much pain inside of him. He's got so much pain inside of him. The same now, imagine if your parents cause that pain, if your siblings cause that pain, but now not just for school for a few hours a day, but through your entire childhood, your teenage years and your early adult years for 20 years in a row. And you just felt like you couldn't really express this to them when you were younger, because let's be honest, a lot of parents will kind of invalidate your feelings and they'll say, no, oh no, I never did that. So this takes like a certain level of kind of skill, like a samurai, for you to sort of step into this conversation and to ask some of these questions, which will be healing for you and also very interesting for you, but which won't really get your parents being defensive. If you say something that gets them defensive, then suddenly it'll turn into an argument and it'll be crazy. But if you ask them something which is really interesting about them, which I think the best kind of questions to ask are just like memories and about their history. You know, what was your childhood like? What were you like in school? What were your friends like? Were you popular in school? In your friend group, were you like the sort of leader, or were you kind of low down? Did you ever get bullied? Did you have like a crush in high school? How did it go? You ask these things and I guarantee every conversation you have, your parents will start to look at you more like an actual man. Right now they look at you like a man-child, like a little man baby, where you are a man but you're still their baby, because you're literally just having conversations with them based on like the sort of survival needs of like, Mummy, can you make me some food please? Like you're basically a little fucking baby to them, right? You're just like a baby just asks for like fucking food. You become more of an adult and you start talking to them about some high level things, and you ask them about, you know, like, I don't know, like you ask them about their religion, you ask them about their family, their friends, their history, their memories. They'll start to see you as like higher tier young man. And that level of respect that they'll give you because of this, I promise will kind of fuel you to have this higher self-esteem when you're then stepping up, going to the gym, speaking to a girl. I firmly believe like all of us are meant to be like such high performers. We're supposed to be like so intelligent, so smart, such hard workers. But a lot of us, if we're being honest, are complete and utter Jeffreys. A lot of us are just fucking lazy little retards. And the reason why is maybe because we have so much shit built up inside of us that's just kind of reserving us. And then that leads you to doing like really destructive habits, like watching a bunch of porn, video games, junk food, whatever. This is, I think, an area of life that almost every young person is slacking in, because our mind is just busying with work and gym and girls. And it's so easy to focus on those things because that's what like the external world will reward you for, right? You are judged on like how much money you make and how good you look. But your own judgment is the most important. And I really think your own judgment will be so much higher when you've healed the relationship with your parents. And I think this is the way to do it. Just go ahead. Start thinking of some deep questions you can ask them. Write them down on your phone. Don't try and make this like a grind. Really be authentic. Like, you don't have to spend half an hour a day thinking of questions or anything. Just think about your parents with like a smile on your face, listen to some peaceful music, and really think like, what is it that you don't know about them? Just ask them that question. If you don't live at home right now, like, get used to calling them or, you know, messaging them, say, hey, can we call? There's something I want to ask you. I guarantee that it will be like the sweetest moment in their day. I honestly guarantee, especially if you ask like a sweet question, you know, which makes them smile, like, you know, who was your best friend in high school, whatever. I asked my dad this actually. I saw something like this online a few months ago, and it said like you should ask your parents like who they miss the most. And I asked my mum, and she just replied with you, because I live like in a different country right now. But I asked my dad, and he said my friend Ahmed. And he gave me a massive paragraph. He said like Ahmed was the kind of like the leader of our group. He kept us really sensible. He told us not to fight with other boys. And he told us even to like walk up, you know, like sort of walk straight with good posture, that none of us should stay awake past like 9 or 10 p.m. You know, he was like the Hamza of their group. And that like, he even said that he or I used to walk exactly like him, you know, like with a bit of confidence or a sway or whatever. And then that he had a heart condition a few years ago and he passed away. And that's the person my dad misses the most. That's the person, like the friend he misses the most. His friend passed away like a while ago. I didn't even know. Like, think about that. Imagine like your one of your best friends passes away, how big of a deal that would be. And imagine if your kids don't even know, because either one, you didn't, you know, kind of tell them, or two, you kind of told them, you were sad one day and they just kind of forgot it because they were just so focused on the laptop and whatever. Can we blame our parents for thinking that we are fucking retards? Honestly, like, you know how like a lot of us young guys, like, oh yeah, like our parents are, you know, babying us and whatever. Can we blame our parents when we're still little babies? Like, imagine your mother telling you like her brother passed away, and within like half an hour, you've almost kind of like forgotten about it. And especially within like a week, it's not in your mind at all, but it's in her mind every single day when she wakes up. And you just don't even ask about it anymore. It's been years and you've completely forgotten about it, but she hasn't. I hope you take this advice, because I really think this video, I know for a fact it's not going to get many views, because this is the type of topic that a lot of people I think are just not ready for. If I made a video like top 9 ways to make more money and get pussy and you know, look really attractive and hairstyles and whatever, so many young people are like, oh yeah, sick, give me more of that. But I really think it's this kind of advice that will just take you to the next level in life. And I think you're going to remember this video for a while. So I hope it helps you. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.